Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to be taking a fully spoilery look at Chapter 73 of Kaiju number 8. This was an exciting, action-packed chapter, which still manages to yank us back to an emotional moment. So I really want to get going on there, but to give you a chance to click away, I'll tell you to go check out the link below the video. By the time you hear this, it will be one day left for you to get a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird, Let's Work It Out, available on Indiegogo for one more day. So go check out that link and get your book if you don't want to hear any spoilers, and here we go. All right. Unsurprising to anybody who read Chapter 72, Chapter 73 is all about our very favorite Vice Captain Hoshina, and Kaiju number 10, now weapons number 10. So if you remember back, the Defense Force was able to turn Kaiju number 10 into a numbers weapon while leaving his consciousness intact. This is something they agreed to have a more powerful weapon. And this chapter kind of surprised me. Given the competence levels of Vice Captain Hoshina, given what his role is in this manga, he's the Lancer, he's the backup, he's the second in command. That requires an extreme level of competence and confidence. And I really can't think of a situation where in the lead up to a big battle sequence like this, the second in command like that extremely competent second in command, fails to master the new weapon, fails to master the new power. But that is essentially what we have here. It turns out that despite all the effort that Vice Captain Hoshina has poured into mastering weapons number 10, that little kink in the armor, that chink in the armor, the fact that weapons number 10 is still awake and fighting and talking back, meant that Vice Captain Hoshina cannot sync properly and draw out all the power with this without losing his control to Kaiju number 10. So anyway, this chapter starts off with the final activation sequence. We have Vice Captain Hoshina in a helicopter, and that's going to be important later on. So he's standing in the bay of this helicopter, waiting for the back door of the helicopter to open. The helicopter appears to be some variation on the Chinook, one of those massive choppers with two sets of 4 rotors each, lifting it above the ground. They have tremendous lifting power. The Chinook is second only to the Sky Crane in terms of the raw amount it can lift, but it's not very versatile, and it's just a really heavy-duty craft. That's all going to become important later. So we find out that this is a prototype, and Okanagi considers it, the weapon number 10 is a prototype still, and Okanagi considers it far too early to be let off into battle, but it's Vice Captain Hoshina pushed to release it into field combat because they need to get the upper hand on Kaiju number 9. And this is when we find out that not only is Kaiju number 10 still awake in there, he can actively talk, something that is profoundly irritating to Vice Captain Hoshina. So in this scene, we see Vice Captain Hoshina lay down the law, we see the Battle of Wills, and we see the weapons number 10 finally acquiesce and say, I got it, I'll follow your lead. And then weapon number 10 cuts a hole in the bottom of the helicopter that they proceed to fall out of, proving that he is absolutely not following Vice Captain Hoshina's lead. Okay, now this is where this whole scene was confusing to me, because you see Vice Captain Hoshina falling. At first I thought they'd just opened a circular port in the chopper, but then I saw that there was a significant chunk of the chopper below them, and that one actually I had to go back and reread this page a couple times before I understood what happened. Now, this is where I'm just going to extend a little goodwill and faith to Matsumoto. Maybe there is a Chinook-like chopper that can have a a major hole cut out of the bottom without falling to pieces. But the way helicopters work, at least the way they worked back when my mom was a helicopter mechanic, is that all helicopters are essentially held together with safety wires that travel from bolt to bolt. And if one breaks, and if these start breaking, they rattle themselves apart. By cutting that large a hole in the bottom of a helicopter, I can't imagine that you didn't sever multiple safety wires, and that helicopter should have rattled itself apart as soon as that chunk was cut out of it. That helicopter shouldn't just be sitting there, it should be literally tearing itself apart with the pounding of its blades. But we don't see that happen. And Matsumoto's not the one to have characters ignore their comrades being shredded like that, because I'm assuming there's a pilot in that chopper. So unless this could be just that my knowledge of helicopter mechanics is older than I am. So I'm thinking of the Huey, that old workhorse of the U.S. Air Force and Army that was decommissioned, that was formally decommissioned not too long ago, because it's just an old machine. I'm pretty sure the same applies to Chinooks and all Chinook-like helicopters, but maybe Matsumoto knows something about this particular style of helicopter that I don't. Maybe Matsumoto is deliberately, in the sci-fi setting set 5 minutes in the future, proposing a helicopter that can take that kind of damage. I don't know. But anyway, the point is we see Vice Captain Hoshina and Kaiju number 10 going into battle as just two distinct mental entities. They haven't fused yet. And this leads to conflict on the battlefield where they're essentially paralyzed, leading to a very amusing panel where the suit quite literally yoinks Vice Captain Hoshina back into place. So this is a very interesting thing. On the one hand, you have the whole main point of the chapter. You have Vice Captain Hoshina battling it out mentally with Kaiju number 10. And now Kaiju number 10 is all in on the fight. Kaiju number 10 absolutely wants to take out these Kaiju. So there's no conflict there with the overall intention. But Kaiju number 10 also wants to make the fight as fun as possible for himself. You have a very Goku type moment here where Kaiju number 10 wants to take these creatures head on, making it as difficult as possible for himself because individually they're far too weak to provide a challenge for him. We're looking at some sort of weird mole grasshopper hybrids. But anyway, these critters are pretty strong, but they have weak points. And Vice Captain Hoshina, being tactical, wants to take them from their weak points. Kaiju number 10 wants to take them from their strong point. And again, the majority of the chapter is devoted to this byplay. You have Vice Captain Hoshina trying to assert dominance over Kaiju number 10. You have Okanogi screaming at Vice Captain Hoshina to back off, pull back, and until they can and get him into a different suit and redeploy him. But Vice Captain Hoshina says no dice to that, of course, and Kaiju number 10 is screaming in his head. Now, that is the main point of the chapter. I've essentially summarized what's going on in the chapter for you. But interestingly enough, Matsumoto does something in the midst of this, flashes back and reminds us of something that in the heat of the moment, in this combat scene, when it's been chapters and chapters since we've seen our main character, Matsumoto yoinks our attention back to the main character, not just to the main character, but to the specific relationship between Vice Captain Hoshina and Kafka. That friendship they're building up, that respect that was severely damaged by the lies that Kafka told, of course, but is still developing there. And Matsumoto very deliberately grabs us by our heartstrings and yanks us back to remember, hey, the main character is still doing his thing, and we've still got so many unresolved plot threads. With one of the main unresolved plot threads being that ghost that showed up that seemed to be a kaiju-like Kafka, a kaiju human hybrid in samurai armor, at the shrine where many of Vice Captain Hoshina's ancestors are interred, drawing this link between Vice Captain Hoshina, Kafka, and the little kaiju that started all of this. Because the appearance of the ghost does seem to coincide with what we've seen when the little guy is giving Kafka information, either on approaching kaiju or other matters. And Matsumoto does this by, in a very interesting way, linking that relationship between Vice Captain Hoshina and Kafka to Kaiju number 10. And this is very, very interesting. We've been looking at Kaiju number 10 as best as a chaotic evil or chaotic neutral. So a brawler, a warrior who has no loyalty to anybody and just likes to brawl for the sake of it. But the way these panels are presented, the way Vice Captain Hoshina is thinking about Kafka in this scene, suggests a much more, let's call it, wholesome, friendly relationship, despite the combativeness, despite the mental combat that Vice Captain Hoshina and Kaiju number 10 are experiencing. This imagery, this perspective from Vice Captain Hoshina that we get in this chapter seems to imply that Kaiju number 10 is going to be more than just a useful tool, more even than just a useful ally. That Kaiju number 10, as in his weaponized form, is building up to be a friend, and someone who actually has loyalties. Now, who are those loyalties going to be for? For Kaiju number 9, who created him, for his brother Kaiju, or for Vice Captain Hoshina, this being that he now shares this bond with? I don't know where Matsumoto is going with this, and this is very intriguing. You have this mental combat that's going on between them. There's definitely no ill will on Hoshina's side. Hoshina's going at this with that same grim, cheerful determination that he approaches all of his duties with. And Kaiju number 10 seems to be enjoying himself immensely, so there's no ill will on that side. And again, that could just be because Kaiju number 10 is a pure brawler with no loyalties. But this panel, this introduction, this reminder that we have all of these storylines with Kafka and Vice Captain Hoshina to fulfill, to complete, also serves to suggest that Kaiju number 10, now weapons number 10, might end up having loyalties to Vice Captain Hoshina. And that is very, very intriguing. I find it very interesting that Matsumoto was able to add that many layers to all of these relationships with just by throwing that one panel in on page 24. And this also raises the question, if Kaiju number 10 is going to be developing an actual friendly relationship with Vice Captain Hoshina, if this is going to proceed beyond you're the weapon that I'm using, which is the current status of their relationship. And if you have this powerful relationship between Vice Captain Hoshina and Kafka, I wonder what is going to be the relationship, if any, between Kaiju number 10 and the little guy. Alrighty. Now, then we have the final scene. They've been battling back and forth with Vice Captain Hoshina, determined to be the one in control of the merge. But then, at the end, Vice Captain Hoshina decides to put his trust, at least in the pure brawler nature of Kaiju number 10, if not putting his trust in Kaiju number 10, but rather than return to the helicopter, if it's there's still a helicopter to return to, Vice Captain Hoshina, and switch out suits and get a normal suit, Vice Captain Hoshina decides to submit the conscious control of the battle to Kaiju number 10, which is incredibly dangerous. This would be an excellent time for Kaiju number 10 to turn on them and return to Kaiju number 9. So, at least from their combat, this shows that Hoshina has at least some trust in the intentions of Kaiju number 10. And at the end of the chapter, we see that Vice Captain Hoshina has submitted his will to Kaiju number 10's. They've merged completely, and they're about to just go crazy on those mixed hybrid, maybe not even hybrid mole, like hybrid human grasshopper kaiju. So I eagerly look forward to finding out where this is going to go. I can't wait till the next chapter. And about the next chapter, if you go to the full chapter list, you will see that there's a new chapter coming in 7 days. Will that be an art chapter? Now we're coming up on the holidays, and when you have... Matsumoto has shown very few patterns with the chapter release schedule because it's changed on a regular basis. But 2 patterns that have shown up are that we often get extra chapters during the holidays, and Matsumoto will win during major arcs when the flow of the story is critical to the story itself. Matsumoto will release chapters in groups of 3, so you have chapter 3 weeks in a row instead of a chapter every other week. So, is this, we're getting an extra chapter now and we'll have to wait 3 weeks without a chapter next month because of the holidays? Or is this, we're getting 3 chapters in a row before going back to our regular bi-monthly schedule? We don't know, but it looks like we are going to get the answers to our questions in just 7 days, if it's not an art chapter for the holidays, which also happens. So, art chapter or full chapter, what do you think? So, what do you think? Do you think that we're going to be developing like a 4-way relationship between these 2 Defense Force officers, Kafka and Hoshina, and their 2 symbiotes, parasites? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button. Go get yourself a copy of my book. And remember, this will be the last day you can get a copy. And peace out, my wonderful viewers. Humans are weird. Let's work it out. Available on Indiegogo for the month of October 2022. Monty Python meets Star Trek in this 3rd book of human absurdity. This book joins its 2 siblings in a trilogy of human madness. You can find the first 2 books, author-signed first editions, at Indiegogo with book 3, or you can go on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are available to get your copies of the first 2 books. Humans Are Weird, Let's Work It Out, Book 3 in the series, available on Indiegogo, October 2022.